Question: once the Supreme Court has made its decisions, such as the 1973 abortion case, Roe v. Wade, are those rulings etched in stone?
We've seen the left and the pro-abortion crowd argue that abortion, as we understand it for the last 30 years, is settled law. Nothing can be done about it. Well, there is no such thing as settled law when a court is wrong, and the Supreme Court has been wrong. I think the most notable case of that was the Dred Scott case, where it's hard to believe now, but the court, much to their shame, said that slaves had no rights that the rest of us were bound to respect.
On December 1st, 2021, the U.S. Supreme Court heard an abortion case out of Mississippi, Dobbs v. Jackson. Court watchers say this is the most serious challenge to Roe v. Wade in a long time.
We were really struck by this case that came out of Mississippi, the Dobbs versus Jackson Women's Health Organization. For numbers of reasons, this case is a historic case that really, for the first time in really probably 30 years, will have the opportunity to strike a blow to Roe versus Wade. And so I think many in the pro-life movement have been waiting for this opportunity.
The Dobbs versus Jackson Women's Health case probably presents us with the biggest opportunity we've had since all the way back to 1973 to overturn Roe versus Wade, which I hope most Americans understand right now, found an imaginary right in the Constitution. Our founding fathers would be mortified if they thought they had written a document that could later be used to justify abortion on demand.
You know, the idea that, hey, this is settled has come up time and time again within our nation's history. At one point in time, they said that it was settled that African Americans were not fully human. Plessy versus Ferguson at one time suggested that separate but equal was acceptable. But the court has concluded that they can be changed, that they can change their minds, and that based on new information and I would say even enlightened perspectives, that the court can make decisions differently than it has in the past.
Why is there a shot at overturning Roe at this particular juncture? Scholars note that it's because of the current makeup of the court.
Other states have tried this, and the efforts have been struck down by the court. But now the Dobbs case went to a Supreme Court where there are 3 new Supreme Court justices, all of them Donald Trump appointees. And the left tried very hard to stop those justices from being put on the courts.
There has been already extreme reaction from pro-abortion groups. They know that their whole abortion empire, the abortion case law in this country, is a house of cards. They know it can't hold together logically. Even pro-abortion scholars, legal scholars, have criticized, been very critical of Roe v. Wade and how the case was decided. Inventing this right to privacy that means the right to end a pregnancy to kill a child. I mean, the whole thing was not logically consistent. It wasn't coherent.
So how did the actual argumentation go on December 1st in the Dobbs case?
I love what I heard in the oral arguments at the Supreme Court. The liberal justices had such an insanely weak defense. I'll give you an example. Justice Breyer talked about how, well, what about law and order? We can't have law and order if we don't have stare decisis. Stare decisis is where they look at previous laws and precedent and say, well, we're going to base this ruling on this precedent. Well, there have been many supremely wrong precedents. And so Justice Breyer's assertion that somehow we lose law and order if we don't hold on to these precedents is nonsense.
As the arguments unfolded, as Amy Coney Barrett started talking about adoption, as Justice Roberts was asking about, well, is there any place we can draw the line other than 24 weeks? And the pro-abortion side was sort of refused to allow anything like that. As Justice Kavanaugh talked about previous Supreme Court precedents that have been overturned, including you know, the Supreme Court's ruling in the late 19th century that segregation is okay, I began to grow more and more hopeful.
Justice Sonia Sotomayor, abortion defender, likened a fetus to a brain-dead person, arguing, quote, virtually every state defines a brain death as death. So I don't think that a response to stimulus by a fetus necessarily proves that there's a sensation of pain or that there's consciousness, end quote.
It's disappointing to see a justice so ignorant of the facts of fetal development and also so willing to carry water for Planned Parenthood.
She denied that there have been scientific advances in the last few decades, 4 decades since Roe. It was really bizarre. She denied fetal pain and the fact that fetal pain can exist 20 weeks and even prior. And then she compared an unborn child to brain-dead people, which she called them dead brain people, which was odd.
Justice Clarence Thomas brought up an interesting point during the oral arguments. He said, where in the Constitution is abortion mentioned? He really pushed the pro-abortion attorneys, both the one from the pro-abortion group and also from Biden's Solicitor General's office, to explain where does this quote-unquote constitutional right to abortion come from? What is it founded on? Is it about autonomy? Is it about liberty? Is it about women's rights? And the attorneys were really struggling to come up with an answer.
An important question to ask is, why does this case matter?
So we're really hopeful for the future. Of course, our passion is to have the undoing of Roe v. Wade and Doe v. Bolton. The violence of Roe has not benefited our society, has harmed so many of us. Obviously, it's killed millions, over 62 million, 63 million coming up.
I believe there's actually a right to life in our founding documents. I think you can interpret that from the wording of our Constitution, and I think our Declaration of Independence, particularly the second paragraph, where it says that all men are created equal and endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, among these, the right to life. I've always thought that was a remarkable thing that our founders, even before there were sonograms, understood that without the right to life, the other rights are sort of beside the point.
Court watchers don't expect the Supreme Court to rule in this case anytime soon, perhaps in late June. So, what happens if Roe v. Wade gets overturned?
If Roe v. Wade is undone, well, good. Then it forces us, especially as Christians, to do what we're called to do, and that's to love one another. And what does that mean? It means self-sacrifice. It means, like my parents, being the ones who actually bring in the single parent, the single mother, and taking care of her and taking care of her children. It means sacrificing ourselves as a church and understanding, hey, here's where we can provide all kinds of love and compassion. So I'm hopeful. I'm hopeful for the future, a future America that does not believe that abortion is somehow an act of compassion, but it's an act of injustice.
This whole issue of abortion needs to be sent back to the states. The states have a lot more leeway, even under Roe, to regulate abortion than they've been allowed to up till now. And that would mean that this battle over abortion would now be fought out in every state around the Union.
Winning for the pro-life side is not about court battles. It's not about even public opinion polls or votes on the Supreme Court. It's not even about legislation. It's really about saving babies from abortion and transforming our culture.
Killing a child at any age is wrong, but to empower the state to protect at least more babies is a step in the right direction. I'm hopeful that the court will be intellectually honest and courageous and do the right thing, which is to undo the disaster that is Roe v. Wade and all of its subsequent precedent that supports the, first of all, it's illogical, it contradicts itself, this baseless position that a child in the womb is somehow not a human, doesn't deserve to live, that women need abortion. They can correct that if they wanted to. That would be dramatic for them to fully overturn Roe, but it's a possibility. So I look to the court with hope, and I would advocate and urge them to be honest and courageous.